Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Monday. It's Forex Focus. Konnichiwa, Frank-san. Welcome back to the United States. It's
smokes.
good to see you, my friend.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
You
I
are
would
just
think
like
after 3 months,
shot out of a cannon.
3 months, you would have trouble getting back in the
2.5
country.
weeks.
But they will argue about that at a later date.
This is one of your favorite. If someone goes on vacation, I think
More than
one
a
of
day.
You as being,
they're dead to me.
I wouldn't necessarily call you an old. I think you're on your way to being. You're a great. You're a man of a certain age. A man of a certain age, and at that age, I feel like one of the favorite topics is like how long did customs take versus the people with global re-entry or whatever. But you have the global.
I love global entry.
Yeah. And the customs only took like 35 minutes getting back in, which I viewed as a win. The customs going into Japan was absolutely unbelievable.
Really?
It was like an hour and a half in the stuffiest room of all time. And another thing, Japan is crawling with Australians. Australians all over the place. Everywhere we went, there's like, I was like, man, I wonder how many Americans we're going to see on this part of the trip or this part of the trip.
That's a big flight. That's
so
not
many
like a weekend hop.
Yeah, like getting to Japan from Australia, I think is still like all of probably 10 hours.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
all over the place, Australians. But yeah, getting in and out of Japan relatively easy.
Were they all bringing in kangaroos or something? I mean, problematic.
I don't know what they were. Yeah, they're very nice people. I don't know why I'm annoyed by it. It was just a funny thing. Every trip there's like a funny thing that you didn't expect. And one of the funny things was like, man, there's Aussies everywhere we go. We went on this hike in the middle of kind of nowhere in Japan, and
now,
every single day Australians.
Along, what was the trail called?
The Kamano Kodo Trail.
Okay,
yes.
and you stopped at different equivalent of bed and breakfasts.
Yeah, like little ryokins, if you will.
We'll go with that, okay? Yeah, all right. Frank-san, sure. Ryokins, which is like a bed and breakfast, right?
Yeah. The big thing is...
Was it like the one we looked at with the very soothing... Well, yeah, it looked like from the picture.
So no shoes. You're not like at the door, they take your shoes and it's slippers.
Now, are you supposed to wear socks? Or what if you have no socks
Dude,
on?
Trust me. It was like we found ourselves at one of these places... like the nicest place we stayed was this spa. After the trail, we go to this spa for 2 nights.
Talk to your boss because you're making way too much money if you're going to spas.
I'm paying it off. It's on like layaway. I got to pay this thing off over like 6 months. It's unbelievable. But okay, so we booked this spa, and it's one of these things not dissimilar to the White Lotus thing, where it's like, okay, what activities do you want to do every day? And it's like, okay, so we booked like there's a massage. We're going to go on this hike, which was a whole nother thing, this hike with this guy, which wasn't a hike. It was like we paid essentially $400 for the guy to take us less than a kilometer up a hill. It was awful. But we did this other thing. We did a sound bath and meditation. That was great. But we booked, as soon as we get there, we have a tea ceremony booked with the owners of the spa. Sitala, if you will. You watch The White Lotus, right?
Yeah.
It is this like kind of like the woman like that, where she's got the kimono. Her husband also has like the kimono. They're dressed very formally, and we're wearing these sandals you're supposed to wear with very specific socks, and we're barefoot. And the whole time, and I have to sit there. It dawns on me within 60 seconds of this tea ceremony, we're supposed to be wearing these socks. We're not supposed to be barefoot. And now I have to sit here for 30 minutes as this woman talks me through this tea ceremony thing, which I don't even want to be a part of, not wearing socks, which is all to say mass confusion everywhere we went with like, what do we wear? There's these baths. One of the places, it's a mutual bath. And I'm like, it's the first one that I've been to, and the owner of that place is the only other person in the bath. And I'm like, what should I wear? Should I be wearing anything? And he's like vigorously like, no, take all your clothes off. Take all your clothes off. And he's like, here, this is how you clean yourself. He's like splashing water on me. And I'm like, so now I'm naked. This guy's naked. He's pouring water on me. And I'm like, what the hell
This is like a day back in parochial school in swim club, wasn't it? Wow.
It was PTSD to St. Barnabas swim class. Is this like he was
what are specific
nice
socks?
There are these socks that have like the toe The big toe, there's like a
separate sidecar for it?
Yeah, so you could wear like thong sandals, essentially.
Okay.
And so like everybody, like we put our stuff down at this spa, and we're like, oh, we have this tea ceremony. Okay, like whatever, like put on the sandals because they take your shoes. You don't have your shoes anymore. And we like we're hurrying, and we get over there, and we start looking around on our way over to the tea ceremony, and everyone has these socks on, and we're the only idiot Americans that are barefoot, clomping around with like our toes out. And I'm like, this woman probably thinks that we're the biggest idiots in the world. But at that point, that's what the money's for, right? You pay enough that you can be. She didn't say anything, that's for sure.
So how long did this tea service last?
Thankfully, only 30 minutes. Yeah, he's like, it's a whole production.
They move the spoon, they do the whisk,
he's
they
got
do the whole thing.
He's got a towel, a special towel for the thing. It was great. It was a great spot. Like, you would, if you ever go
so you were naked in the bath. You were
that was a different one.
You were wearing the kimono, which again, we've got the fathead coming to the office of you in the kimono, which is great.
Which I don't think I ever wore a kimono. I think I just wore a robe. I think I would just call that a robe. But
no, we're calling it a kimono.
That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of, I have no clue what I'm about to do, and I feel very uncomfortable. But we'll just see what happens. At the end of the day,
now when you get on the trail, were you able to communicate? Well, this is touristy stuff. I would imagine there's some English speakers. I've been told by friends of mine who actually spent longer time there that once you get out, even in the city, it's not like, I went to Italy last summer. You can always kind of find somebody who can help you out if you're stuck.
And the Italians want to talk. They're very talkative people. Japanese, not a lot of talking going on, which I really appreciated.
This is a place I could visit.
That's right.
I like this.
And also, it's obviously super developed. So, like, on the trail and everywhere, your Google Maps and everything is working very, very well. And so, like, you don't have to talk to that many people. I know this makes me maybe a bad person. I don't think I said a single Japanese word the whole time. Callie would make fun of me and like kind of be embarrassed because we'd walk into a place and they would say konnichiwa, or they would say, what was this thing that they said all the time? I can't even remember. Like the equivalent of like, thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, arigato gozaimasu. They would say that. And I wouldn't say, and I would just be the American that walks in, and I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And Kelly would be like, "They don't know what you're saying," and I'd be like, "Yeah, but it felt insincere if I was going to start saying konnichiwa and stuff like that because I was like, they know look at me, they know that I'm not speaking a bunch of Japanese when I land there, and so yeah, man, it wasn't a problem at all, even on the trail. Not a lot of English speakers per se when you get to the different bed and breakfasts, but like they're just like, dinner's at 6. That's it. And then you show up, they put all the courses in front of you, and then you go to bed. Like that's really it. There wasn't need for a lot of communication. But it was good. We hiked effectively 50 miles over 4-5 days.
And she let you live. The future Mrs. Caberna. It was amazing she let you live.
She did, a really good job.
Good for her.
It was, at certain points, it was a lot of climb. The mountains in Japan aren't super high. We're so spoiled. You and I, we've been to Utah, Wyoming, and it's like this, like mid-sized mountains in that area are, 10 to 15,000 feet. Right. These mountains were the equivalent of like, I think maybe like 5,000-6,000. And so like on a day-to-day, if you're hiking 10 miles and you're doing, 3,000-4,000 feet of climb, it's a lot. But it's not the same as if you've been out to Utah or Wyoming or anything like that. The mountains, they're beautiful, cherry blossoms, everything. But like, yeah, it's not as extreme as Rockies or anything like that.
Well, whatever you did,
what?
The Japanese are not necessarily happy with it because the currency has staged a huge rally. It's like once you were there, it's like they got supercharged. It's like, let's get their ability to say, looking at you and then saying, do we really want to own dollars if this guy is representative of that hold? And then just the massive selling of dollars versus yen over the last 2 weeks.
He's landed.
Coincidence or not? I don't know.
He's here for 17 days. And now
30 days.
We're going to absolutely gouge him on the exchange rate. Yeah, it sucked. And I didn't check in too much, but I would get the notification and it would be like from the tastyfx app, like, oh, dollar yen is down 1.5%. And I'm like, the whole time, the SPA thing is at the end of the trip.
Well, how are you paying for this? With just credit cards?
Everything I've already paid for,
right,
for the most part.
So it's all locked in.
Except for this SPA. And I'm eyeing this SPA thing that I'm watching the dollar yen price, and it's not anything crazy, but effectively over the course of the trip, it goes from being X amount to X plus 5% because of the drop in dollar yen from 150 to whatever, 143. And I was just like, oh my God, this thing is already killing me. And now it's 5% more expensive.
But you're so relaxed after the SPA.
Yeah, it was really relaxing the 2 days there where I'm staring at this and I'm looking at the bill and I'm like, oh my God, this is...
Were you able to do the yen math really easily, or was it a little hard on you?
It was, yeah, it was totally fine. And thankfully we did take out a bunch of cash immediately when we got there. Right. And it was still like...
the cash machine thing is the way to go.
150. Yeah, it wasn't... They only gouge you a little bit. It's like...
The banks will gouge you huge. So
well, that's the thing is that, like, it's like, oh, I've been, a member of Chase for a decade plus, however many years. And they're like, okay, that's great. It's 11%. Like the difference between what you're seeing on your computer.
I thought you had the card with
Yeah, so everything was totally fine. Okay. And yeah, when you're on the ground there, they only get you for like 3 or 4%.
Was it difficult carrying my gift through all these trails and everything?
That's the thing that's going to be awkward as people get in, and some of the olds have already been like, oh, what kind of treats did you bring back from Japan? I brought nothing for anybody.
Wow.
It was, dude, I'm going 50 miles through the mountains
sure, that
with
works
this backpack. What am I supposed to bring? Wow. I'm lucky I brought one gift for my sister who watched our dog for 17 days. What did you want? What would you have wanted? What could I bring you from Japan that you would have wanted?
Oh, absolutely nothing. Let's just move on to markets now that disappointment has set in. So, wow. Okay, so I guess, where should we send you next? Probably New Zealand to continue on this rally a little bit. If you can actually,
yeah, I'll take on anybody who's having currency problems that wants their currency to appreciate relative to the dollar.
Yeah, you should
take a trip.
Take another month-long sabbatical, I think.
But yeah, these prices are nowhere near where I left them.
114 euro, 132 cable. It's
craziness.
And I'm sure you were taking a peek at stuff, but huge moves. So
yeah, I wanted to. What I've done is set up the platform here with hourly charts for across all the major dollar pairs, because I want to take a look at what has occurred and also take a look at, I'm sure people are more interested in what's occurred on Friday, because I also see that there was some big moves on Friday after the show would have. So we'll recap all of it. But yeah, over the course of my sabbatical, the last 2 weeks, this euro dollar market,
wanted him to lose
where I left it was we got up to 110 and then it backed off to 108, and it looked like, okay, that's the range, maybe 107 to 110. We'll see what happens. Not a chance. They blow out 110. They give back a little bit of ground. And then the last week looks absolutely insane. This market gets all the way above 114, challenges 115, comes all the way off to 113. And then even on Friday, you see this back and forth here of, like I say, getting up to 115, coming off 200 points effectively by the afternoon, and then rallying into the close. Now we're finding ourselves at the start of this week rallying across the board against this U.S. dollar. Sterling had the same back and forth at the end of last week. 130, already a pretty high price. As we speak, Pete, they're marching up to 132. What the heck is going on? I'm fine for the last 2 weeks, but what happened on Friday and what's happened to start the week here?
I think we had a relief rally in equities when they started to put stuff on pause. We had a huge rally up middle part of last week where we saw the dollar getting bid. We saw U.S. equities NASDAQ rallied 11% in a day with the pause on tariffs because treasuries were getting a little glitchy. Now, they took treasuries from a high of 122 starting the week down to sub 112.
Wow.
Yeah, and they went through a litany of, it was the China selling treasuries, it was Japan selling treasuries. I think it was, again, who knows exactly? I'm sure it was a little bit of everything. China's got 800 billion of treasuries. If they unloaded them all, we would be closer to par than 112.
Wait. 10 years went from 122 to 112.
No, with 30 years, ZBs.
Okay, 30 years.
Yeah.
In 1 week.
Yeah, 112.
Holy smokes.
So while the 2 years continued to rally, our yields fell. The 2s, 10s is out to 55, 60 basis points, which we haven't seen, since 2022. So 2's getting bought because they think the Fed's going to have to cut rates. The question becomes is, the macro question, which is one that is worth parsing, but not that, who's going to buy all this existing debt and then the new $4 trillion of debt they want to put out there. So
I just want to take a look because that piece I didn't look that much into, the interest rate piece.
And this was very disconnected because one of the things Glenn and I talked to, Glenn did an absolutely fantastic job the month you were gone. He ran correlations to treasuries and yen. And, we don't hang our hat on just one thing, but that positive correlation running 70%. In other words, on days when U.S. yields are down, the yen tends to rally. On days when U.S. yields are up, the yen tends to fall.
Yeah.
Which logically makes sense.
Sure.
If Japanese rates are steady,
and U.S. rates are climbing,
the dollar should get some strength, the yen should soft.
Yeah.
That relation completely came off the rails last week because when we had this, we saw yen getting bid very aggressively, dollar yen getting sold, dollar Swiss getting sold, Swiss getting bid very aggressively last week. Now, they paused when we had this huge rally at the tariff pause announcement.
U.S. rates take off.
U.S. rates just continue to fall apart during the whole thing. So the bond prices continue to fall. 30's got within a whisker of 5%. So then they announced this pause, and they expected U.S. equities rallied, NASDAQ rallied 11% that day. You would have thought, well, bonds would have staged a huge relief rally. They didn't. They went from 112 to 114, and then started getting sold again near the lower end of the range. So real disconnection. Yields continue to track higher, irrespective of what equities did. But the one resounding thing was dollar got an initial bounce where you highlighted, but was just met with selling Thursday and Friday, irrespective. U.S. equities were following the relief rally, went almost limit down 7%, then rallied to almost just down 2% for the day, traded higher on Friday. So we've been all over the place. We haven't revisited the low lows, but the dollar has been unrelenting in getting sold against everything. So is this part of a bigger story of dollar? And again, I don't want to get into the whole macro thing of, I think you've got to respect the tape action. The fact we're at 114, we're at 140, we're at 132 in cable, even Aussie and Kiwi. Aussie had a 3-handle range one day last week. So when you think about that, that is almost 9 times the 30-day one standard deviation. So
I saw this piece as well, and this is okay. So everything that Pete said, just to summarize, is that this U.S. dollar is weak at the end of last week, start of this week. This U.S. dollar is weak across the board,
right? And Sunday night,
indiscriminate of other markets,
right? Sunday they announced over the week. I guess they announced that they were going to exempt cell phones. When Tim Cook bought his pass, supposedly, cell phones and laptops, whatever. I don't know. And then they come out and say they're not doing it. So we saw U.S. equities, NASDAQ open 200 higher. Swiss was lower, yen was lower, albeit a little bit, and then all of a sudden the bid comes out of nowhere. Euro gets a huge bid, cable gets a huge bid, yen gets a bid, Swiss gets a bid, and that continues throughout whatever U.S. equities are doing. So it seems like they're not giving much time. What we're seeing is the flip side of what we saw last October. where any rally, any fall in the dollar is very short-lived time-wise. Unless you're really kind of stepping into it, you're going to miss it. Here, any selling in any rally in the dollar is short-lived.
Yeah.
And is met with selling at ever increasingly higher levels.
Here's the piece from last night to Pete's point, because NASDAQ is still up. Last time I checked, 1.5% this morning.
And this is where it's getting disconnected, right?
You have the dollar bid last night on the new, whether, Apple, whatever the hell the news is, equities are up, dollar getting a little bit of relief last night, immediately sold into.
Right.
This is the dollar Swiss franc, which is crazy chart to see this thing just get pummeled nonstop over the last 2 weeks. This is really interesting to me because I thought that I would have come to my platform, take a look at everything, what I missed the last couple of weeks, and I would have thought, okay, if US dollar is getting hit relative to Swiss franc, relative to Japanese yen, even compared to the euro and sterling part of it, fine. This Aussie must be 60 offer, for sure. And the fact that this is bouncing back relative to US dollar tells you that at this point, US dollar is very vulnerable, and it seems like any bid in USD is getting sold into almost immediately, and the sell-offs in this US dollar are pretty violent. Again, taking a look at this sterling market here this morning, another close to 100 points on the day.
Yeah. And
looking at 132, which they did get up to, it looks like, on April 3rd, and then come off immediately. Obviously, this is, 400, 500 points that they came off in the days following hitting 132 a couple of weeks ago. But now, looking back at it again, looking at it this morning, I mean, this is some pretty unbelievable US dollar weakness. And to your point, if you're looking at equities, I don't think you can tell a story between the correlation there. Even if you're looking at US rates, to your point, it's hard to tell a story.
Australia's lowered rates to 2.5%. The Euro's meeting this week. They're probably going to lower rates to 2.5%. That story isn't working.
Yeah.
Does it mean it will reconnect? I don't know, but I accept the fact that I'm not. Again, we don't lean on just one thing for our trade ideas, but that correlation between treasuries and yen worked really nicely. And these always work until they don't. You accept they don't, and you move on to the next peak. Right now, overwhelmingly, tape action is indicating that there's dollar weakness out there. We're plumbing new lows in the dollar, and the bounces we don't see higher highs, we see higher lows and then new lows. So until that kind of action gets a little run to ground, I mean, look at stuff, go pull up.
Look at this dollar CAD. I can't believe this piece of it. Again, I would have thought that it would have been, okay, if euro dollar's at 113 and dollar yen is back to 140, then surely USD is kicking CAD's butt.
Take a look at euro Aussie.
Let's take a peek. Where is my euro Aussie chart? I mean, considerable back and forth in this market relative to euro USD or even Aussie USD. You're at least seeing two sides of this trade.
Right.
I would have thought that this Australian dollar would have just weakened across the board, but for it to weaken to the point of getting up to, looks like a couple of different times, 184, 185, but then Aussie, at least it looks like, has this piece been correlated with equities, this Australian dollar piece? A little bit.
No, and it hasn't. Again, the Chinese story of China's. I mean, FXI, everything got hit. Nowhere near the lows we were at, but totally disconnected from that. So some of these currency non-dollar crosses have had huge outlier one-way moves. So we saw this trade. Again, this is something that doesn't usually move by this kind of scope, but we've seen this play from. Was it last
170 all the way up to 185?
Right.
But at least some back and forth here,
Absolutely. But this will continue to be. There is, and we highlighted this one just as we had traded 185. And when you look at you look at the moves in euro, sterling, and if if you don't want to be part of the dollar story, these non-dollar crosses give you, this was one that actually had a little bit more reversion to it than any of the other ones.
Yeah, it looks like you're at least getting some back and forth here. Correlations aside, the non-dollar pairs, it looks like are giving you some back and forth. Whereas, again, just to end this segment here.
This is tougher to find the tops on. So,
non-stop dollar selling across most of these dollar pairs.
Yeah, so and the one takeaway is you can't take both sides off the table now. If you've been short a couple times and gotten stuck, hopefully you've managed them well and thought about those metrics when you got in the trade. Be able to, bounce back to euro just really quickly.
Sure.
If we get a pullback to 112, yes, that seemed awfully high 3 weeks ago. That's a decent pullback in tape action. Don't expect this to revert back to 109 right away.
Sure.
I think you've got to accept the range as it is. Are we going to trade 120? I've got no clue. We know that when FX gets to a new range, it tends to get elastic and really probe that level. So do we stay there? I don't know, but I would respect the tape action. Look for both sides of the trade and be mindful making those decisions. Start smaller. Sometimes using the non-dollar pairs to scale positions in lets you trade in extreme while you still do the back and forth in the dollar-based pairs.
Volatility in everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is exactly what you want as traders is movement and back and forth. Be mindful of, getting tied to a news cycle because the news cycle isn't working right now. So, but lots of opportunity if you stay disciplined and accept that this is where the market is. The prices are efficient. So with that, coming up next, Tom, Tony, and Vanetta. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for the latest edition of Forex Focus. Have a great day.
Tasty Trade is now on TradingView. Trade stocks and futures directly on TradingView charts with Tasty Trade's low commissions. Try it out and leave us a review.